and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
It's an Ed Sheeran voodoo doll, Mike.
And I'm your sexual Tyrannosaurus, Colton.
And we are visited by a very special guest of the podcast. We were discussing before we were rolling. It's been since April 2019. Fan favorite. I actually had someone tell me like a month ago. They said, "When's this guy coming back?" I said, I don't know. And so we brought him back. Author Brad Dunne.
Woo! Fan favorite and host favorite. We love him.
The CIA had me pushing too many pencils.
So yeah, I was gonna say, for anyone new to the podcast, do you want to just introduce yourself, Brad? What you do?
I'm an author from Mount Pearl, St. John's, Newfoundland, and I bother these guys every now and then to let me on their show.
And we always have to have them on when it's something sweet with Arnold. So. It's just facts.
So when we do the Terminator like triple feature, we'll have him on multiple times, I guess.
Oh yeah, listeners, get ready for Colton. I already hear the judgment in his voice.
It's Judgment Day.
I already can't wait to talk about Kristana Lokan, but anyway.
Well, let's start with that simple age-old question. What have we been consuming for media, television, movies, books? Feed it to me, fellas. We'll start with you, Brad.
Well, I think we were talking about this before we started, but lately I've been crossing some stuff off my to-watch list. Underwater with, forget the actress's name.
Kristen Stewart.
Host, which is a Shudder special. Original Japanese version of Pulse. I've been watching Wheel of Time on Amazon, and currently reading Nosferatu by Joe Hill.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Actually, I'm listening to an audiobook, and Janeway from Star Trek is the narrator, which is pretty cool.
Oh my god. Kate Mulgrew?
Yeah, I think that's her name.
Yeah, oh my god, I love her. Amazing.
How about yourself, Mike?
Well, I just got a new book called And the Category Is, and it's a brand new book about like the 80s and 90s like ballroom and voguing scene in New York. So I cannot wait, because I love that like era. I love that scene. Like Pose is, as I've said 8,000 times, one of my favorite movies I've ever, or TV show, sorry, that I've ever seen. So I can't wait to start reading that. And I have been living for the new season of Euphoria.
Dude, now I've been meaning to watch that for so long.
Yeah,
I haven't started it.
Y'all, like, you can't go sleeping on this show, because I thought it's been a year and a half, I think, since season 1 ended, because they just, like, were right about to start filming when COVID happened, so that just, like, did not happen. They did 2 special episodes that were essentially, like, 2 people, like almost like little plays. Like, there was literally, obviously, because they had to do, like, distancing and stuff, it was literally just 2 characters in each episode. But now they're finally back with the new season, and it's phenomenal. The last episode that just came on Sunday, I've already watched twice. Parts of it I've watched 4 or 5 times. It is excellent. Like, you can't sleep on this. It's about, like, high school people, and it's, like, ratcheted up to, like, 20. But everything about it is amazing. The actors are fantastic. Like, the writing is great. The soundtrack is mind-blowingly good. Like, just, I can't recommend it enough. So that's why I've been just, like, completely consumed by Euphoria now for the last, like, couple weeks.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot lately. Like, you know, over this weekend alone, I watched 14 movies, and that's largely due to the Sundance Film Festival. one of the silver linings of COVID, if you could even say a silver lining of COVID, is that I've been able to attend a bunch of film festivals online over the past couple of years. So, I get to check out a bunch of movies I'd otherwise miss. So I just figured I'd like take a minute or two to talk about like a few of my favorites, like 2 or 3. Yeah, so my favorite film of the festival, and also like probably one of my favorite movies of last year now, was Kogonada's new movie, which is called After Yang. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Columbus a few years back, but he wrote and directed that, and that was like pretty popular on like the indie film scene. But this movie's very different. This it stars Colin Farrell, and it's almost like what feels like an episode of Black Mirror, if Black Mirror was, instead of, bleak and depressing, and was hopeful and poignant and actually kind of beautiful in a way with its like showcasing technology. Like, it's actually very thoughtful, and it winds up focusing on a period that's like seems reachable within our lifetime, and it's very like grounded sci-fi. And basically it's just about Colin Farrell's character and his wife purchase like an AI companion for their daughter. And it winds up like breaking down a little bit into the movie, like right at the beginning. And basically it just poses like, what does our life look like after Yang, after he is gone? And it's just a movie that kind of focuses on, themes of like love and loss, kind of demonstrating how sometimes there's a lot like you can discover about a person when they're gone. And man, I don't know. I really like loved the movie. It was one of those movies that when I was watching it, I like teared up like multiple times throughout. Like, it's very touching. It's one of those movies I'd classify as like a beautiful movie, if I'm not going to sound too pretentious. But yeah, dude, I absolutely loved it. So if anyone can check out After Yang, I would highly recommend it.
I'll maybe do for that what I did for the new Scream movie and download a cam version of it that I can't hear anything and turn off after 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with these film festivals is like, I would almost assume there would be pirated versions of these movies like almost available instantly, but I don't know what they do. Yeah, like I never see anything leak after the fact, but I don't know if there's a leak of After Yang out there in good quality, I'd recommend checking it out whichever way you can.
Watermarks on it or something. That might be a deterrent.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is. But yeah, another movie I saw that's very different than After Yang is a little movie called Watcher. And that's written and directed by a director called Chloe Okuno. And, she directed one of the better segments of the new VHS anthology. And she also had a short that was really popular a couple of years back just called Slut. This Watcher is her feature film debut. And it's about a young woman who moves to Bucharest with her husband and finds that she is being watched from the apartment building across the road. And it stars It Follows alumni Micah Monroe. So,
nice.
Yeah, so when I was watching it, I don't want to oversell it, obviously, because It Follows is like a masterpiece, but I was definitely getting some It Follows vibes in terms of like the stalking and the following, not so much the film's presentation, but it was just one of those things that like it created a feeling of dread like 15 minutes into the movie, and then it just like it didn't let up until the credits rolled. So for a simple thriller that's very effective, like, I would recommend wholeheartedly to check out Watcher. And I would not be shocked like if in 3 to 4 years time like we're all talking about Chloe Okuno as like a new big like genre director. Like, it was excellent, very well made.
Nice.
And then the last thing I kind of got to reference is just like, I don't want to ramble on too much, but like this movie's been like all over Twitter and like people have been freaking out about it, called Fresh. And it's already been acquired by Hulu. It's coming out like the first week of March. And much like Chloe Okuno, this is directed by like a first-time feature director as well, Mimi Cave. And like what she managed to create is like something that's like so twisted and messed up that it's just kind of like anyone who's a fan of gore or a fan of most of what we cover on this podcast is going to love it. It stars Daisy Edgar Jones, which I've never heard of, but like she's apparently done a lot of television work and she's excellent in this movie. Her co-lead is Sebastian Stan, who like, I mean, everyone knows Sebastian Stan, but he's not playing.
Sebastian Stans.
Sebastian Stan, exactly. He's very much not playing a Marvel character in this movie. And honestly, like the less said about it, the better. But I just wanted to get it on some people's radars as like, since it's straight up a horror movie and a really like messed up one at that. But yeah, it's just so confident. The style, the needle drops, the lighting, the script, like everything just comes together. It's a movie that's so confident about itself that it doesn't even drop the title card until like 38 minutes into the movie. Like it's a wild ride. So like I would recommend anyone to check this out, on Hulu. I think it's coming at the beginning of March.
Nice.
Yeah, but what about yourself, Rowan?
So I've been trying to catch up on like TV that I've kind of missed. So me and X finally started watching The Boys, which we are both thoroughly enjoying. We're not that far into it. And then I watched the episode of the Fargo TV show. Which,
dude.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I gotta hold off because I was like, oh, X will be into this. So I gotta wait.
Just season 1 of Fargo, or?
Yeah. Like I've never.
Oh, it's so good.
My mom was like, you gotta watch it. It's awesome. So
your mother has good taste.
She does, luckily.
Yeah, Fargo is one of my like favorite TV series of like the last 10 years. I'm a big fan of Fargo. So
I think you loaned me your Blu-ray of it when we worked together, and that's how I watched it.
I would not be shocked, man. I've been pushing that TV series on people for years.
And in terms of movies, it's kind of, since last time we recorded, it's been the weeks of the rewatches. So we'll start with probably the most like, I don't know, like art house film I rewatched was Will Ferrell's Semi-Pro.
Oh God.
Which I'm a fan of. I'm
not the Will Ferrell.
I'm a big fan. Andre 3000, you can't go wrong. Also rewatched The Devil's Rejects the other night, which I hadn't seen in a while.
I feel like I got a text from you about that at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Although it might have felt that way because I went to bed at like 9:30, so.
No, I feel like I got a similar text and it was right around that time as well, but I'm up at 2 in the morning.
Probably, and I was like, hey guys.
Rose just up in the middle of the night, I gotta watch Devil's Rejects, man.
Yeah.
And then I rewatched, because I went out and I bought Halloween Kills, so I rewatched that, and yeah, I don't know, it's Halloween Kills. And then I rewatched Last Night in Soho, which I was writing Colton that I think I like it better even more the second time, even more.
I still haven't seen it.
It's fantastic. It looks fantastic. Me and Colton talked about it on like a mini episode.
Mm-hmm.
The ending, it kind of falls off, but other than that, it looks amazing. So yeah,
it's still very good, still very worth seeing for sure.
Oh
but
yeah,
100% for me. Just kind of takes it down a major notch for me.
The music's great. Yeah, like everything about it is fantastic. So we will get into the trailer for the first film this evening, Predator 1987, and then we will be right back.
Whatever it is out there, it killed Hopper, and now it wants us.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
She says the jungle, it just came alive and took him.
It kills for pleasure.
He was skinned alive!
It hunts for sport.
It's killing us one at a time.
But this time,
if it bleeds, we can kill it.
It's picked the wrong man to hunt. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator. Rated R. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.
All right, Predator. As Rowan just said, it was released in 1987 and is directed by John McTiernan, written by brothers Jim and John Thomas, and the story is as follows. Dutch, a soldier of fortune, is hired by the U.S. government to secretly rescue a group of politicians trapped in Guatemala. But when his Special Forces unit lands in Central America, they soon discover a string of bodies gruesomely disfigured, and come to find that they are being hunted by an extraterrestrial being whose strength supersedes their own. As his men are picked off one by one, Dutch realizes his only chance at escape relies on hunting the hunter and defeating the Predator.
So we know where we're going to start. Is this our first time seeing this? We will start with you, Mike.
Girl, no. I don't even. This is one of those movies I've seen it like 100 times in my life. I'm sure I saw it on ASN back in the day or something. Back when they used to just play Arnold Schwarzenegger movies like 7 in a row every day of the week for like 2 weeks, and me and my dad would just sit down and watch them. It's just always been in my life. Someone's always been watching it, so it's just been a permanent kind of like background movie in my life, no matter what the context. at home with friends. Like, it's just always around.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it hasn't really been like a background thing. I've seen it a couple of times. Like, honestly, I haven't seen this movie since Alien vs. Predator came out. And that was like when my mom was like, oh, you don't know Predator? You have to see Predator. So for whatever reason, my mom made me watch like Predator.
Why
and
do I
Predator
find that
2.
so hard to believe?
Well, it's just like, I don't know. My mom, just like this nice Christian woman, wanted me to watch Predator 1 and 2 for whatever reason. I don't know. She like loves these Alien and Predator movies for whatever reason. So yeah, that's the first time I watched Predator 1 and 2. Whenever AVP came out, which was like what, 2006 probably?
A million years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen it once or twice since then, but it's certainly not like the background movie of my life or anything. You know, I'm pretty good. What about you, Brad?
No, I can't remember the first time I've seen Predator. Maybe it's like Mike. I probably saw it on TV at some point as a kid, but I've seen it probably at least a dozen times. One of my favorites. I love Predator.
And yeah, I've seen this a million times. I used to watch this, like, I remember watching this on VHS, renting it all the time at Blockbuster. Although I don't know if I ever owned it on VHS. I think I just always rented it. I did own the second one. I don't think I ever owned the first one. But yeah, I've seen this tons. I own this on VHS now. I watch it on VHS in my bedroom all the time when I'm just lazing around. But like Brad said, it's just, this should be in your repertoire always. Horror hounds. Do you guys like horror music? I like horror music. Exilia likes horror music. We know Mike definitely loves horror music. So if you love horror music like we do, join us on Spotify. We have a playlist up called the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. We have some of our favorite tasty jams from some of our favorite horror movies, and we're always consistently adding to the list. And let us know. You can email us or Facebook or Instagram us and let us know if there's anything we should add to the playlist. So we know where we're gonna start. Our favorite scene, favorite kill. We'll start with you, Colton.
Oh, God. Favorite scene of this movie. I mean, it's very easy for me to just say the handshake because I use that gif like all the time whenever, especially like when I'm arguing with someone for like a while, then finally we agree. I'll just use the Predator handshake and be like, okay, good.
It's such a meme now. It's such a meme.
Yeah, like, good. We found some common ground. But realistically, if I had to pick a favorite scene, like all the kills in this movie kind of just blur together for me, whatever. It's probably when Arnie jumps into the river near the end and he just kind of accidentally covers himself in mud. And then you see like the water ripple behind him, because it is like one of the few moments in the movie where I go like, okay, you can kind of argue that this is going for a horror vibe right here. And he kind of like slinks up against the muddy wall and like, you know, hides away from the Predator's heat vision. But, and, you know, just the fact that he's, like, actually scared and, you know, it reminds me of, like, you know, the creature getting close. That's probably my favorite scene. What about you, Mike? I see you freaking out down there. I chose your favorite scene again.
Because you took my scene! But for different reasons. I'm like, can you imagine just, like, the aesthetic of... This is, you know, whatever, it's not a kill. But in the past, I found it, like, kind of comical, and now I'm like, I love the aesthetic of it, of like him flopping onto this like clay mud shore and just like, you know, like somehow rolling around in it and like just covering himself in like mud like a fucking gorgeous ladies wrestling scene, and just like oh look, I'm so covered in mud. It's like just smeared all over his like rippling body and everything, and it's like, it's so ridiculous and over the top, and I'm like, I fucking love this shit. Totally different reasons. It's not the horror vibes of it at all, which, by the way, you're totally right about. It's like very like alien, and anyway, but yeah, so that's totally my favorite scene for many reasons. Anyway, Brad, what do you have to contribute?
I'll say my favorite scene is when they all mow down the jungle, shooting their guns, and my favorite kill is when Arnold throws a knife at Buddy and says, stick it around.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
That one's good.
Yeah.
My favorite kill is probably the shooting Carl's hand off while he's just screaming, and then you get the shot of the hand on the ground, just still firing. Oh, it's so epic. And, yeah, I mean, obviously I enjoy the handshake scene. It's a meme I send to my brother Dylan literally like every day.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I want to get his attention, I'm just like, Dylan, you son of a bitch. Which is kind of funny because he always writes me and he's like, I've never seen that movie. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just like, watch it, man.
How has he never seen that movie?
I don't know. He's gonna have to watch it. And in terms of scenes, I like all this. I do really enjoy the intro when they're coming out of the helicopter, and you just get to see like all the different fashion choices that were made for this film. I do just love that little montage thing going on. So that's probably my favorite scene. I was gonna say that to really start talking about the film, let's just have the argument now. Colton has been texting me since I picked this and said Predator is not a horror movie. I've never felt so. I know what Mike feels like now when we attack him every pick.
I was gonna say, when I was watching this, I felt vindicated in like every choice that I've ever made for this podcast.
Dude, there's very few moments in this movie where like anyone is actually like afraid or in peril. Like it's usually like they just get blown up by like a laser beam coming at them, or it's just like they get mowed down by guns. It's like there's a very few moments in the movie where it actually even like takes the time to like scare or like try to build up the tension. Like obviously there's the shots from the trees, but like other than the Arnie section at the end, like everything else leading up to that is just like big buff dudes walking around the jungle with holding their guns improperly and just firing. Like that's the rest of the movie essentially.
Yeah, most of my notes actually were along the lines of that. I guess because when I was watching it, and I never really think of it as a horror movie, when I've been thinking about it and watching it all these years, I was like, okay, there actually is a lot of, I'm gonna say, borrowing of slasher movie tropes.
Yeah.
In this movie. So I get it. It's sort of like if you transpose slasher movie tropes into this insane, just like barrage of frenetic gunplay. So really it's like literally like if you just took a pinch of salt and like did the little, speaking of memes, the little salt flick. Yeah, that's what we're talking about of horror in this. Basically the POV shots, like you said.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna gatekeep it and say like, oh, it's not horror, it's action. But I mean,
no.
This is like something like my stepdad throws on, who only has the attention span to watch action and war movies. Like this is probably one of his favorite movies. Like it's the type of thing I think it's like they're not really afraid most of the time. And obviously there are other horror movies where like I don't know, people band together to defeat whatever they're coming up against, which I guess you can argue this is for. But most of like the aesthetic and the way they portray this movie is to make the dudes look cool the entire time.
Yeah.
Not to make them look afraid or make them look like threatened or, anything like that. It's very like there's a couple of key scenes they do that, but the rest of the movie is just like these dudes smoking cigars and flexing. Like, why do you think it is a horror movie, Rowan?
Fucking miniguns and shit.
Yeah.
Yes,
right?
please.
Yeah, come on.
Since I always have to fucking get put on the hot seat and defend myself, go ahead. Rationalize.
So, I mean, you kind of briefly brought it up. I always kind of looked at it, taking those notes from like a slasher film, so like when I watched this, like I watched it on Blu-ray, and they have an interview with John McTiernan, and he talks about that his idea of this film was that it was a slasher movie. Like, yes, it was an action movie, but him and Arnold in interviews both said they wanted it rooted in, like, the horror genre also. This is a weird comparison, but not only do I think it takes notes from a slasher movie, I think it takes notes from giallo movies where we're getting a lot of people killed that we don't see the killer, and, you know, we're getting that trope of, like, not seeing the killer really until the final act of the film.
I mean, yes, he is invisible, so...
With some of the best...
we can't see him.
Yeah, some of the best visual effects ever put on screen, I would say. That camouflage.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my argument with it. And then I think really maybe like a revisionist history where, I mean, now that we have Predator so tied in with Alien, you know, and it's part of this universe, I think it has its place in this sci-fi horror universe, be it, you know, that this is probably a little more action than, you know, you're gonna get out an Alien. Well, actually, you know, there's aliens, guys.
I mean,
aliens.
really, we're looking at, like, the first Alien. You could put it with the rest of them, yeah.
So, that's my weak argument, but, that's why I brought Brad on, so you can just...
Your weak argument that we essentially made for you before you even started talking, by the way.
That's right, guys. I mean, really, the question was, did you not want to watch a movie with just Arnold smoking stogies the whole time? Come on, guys.
Once they got him out of that awful fucking red polo shirt at the beginning of the movie, then it was fair game. You're right.
It kind of gave me Armageddon vibes, because I felt like they all just came back from the strip club, like, right to the chopper.
And then, you know, you hear Chantal Kreviazik's leaving on a jet plane. Let's do an edit. Let's digitally edit that song into this movie, please. Actually, maybe we could even do the whole Armageddon soundtrack.
Brad, what are your thoughts? Does this deserve a place in horror?
I think so. My case will be that it's like it is like a slasher movie, except that instead of co-eds, it's like Marines. But I would say that it's also kind of like a Vietnam movie, and I think the horror is that it's actually kind of like a Vietnam movie. It's about subverting like expectations of like American military might, where, you know, these guys are supposed to be the elite soldiers and they're being taken out one by one by like a mysterious force. I think it's kind of hard for it to be horror now because we know what the Predator looks like so much, so that cat is kind of out of the bag. So it's kind of hard to feel that sense of dread probably that you had maybe like the earlier viewers and the first time viewers. But I still think the recipe for a horror is there, in the sense of, you know, what is horror? And for me, horror is kind of like exposing the chaotic randomness underneath expectations, which is kind of exactly what I think Predator as a story is. And also kind of like exposing kind of real like 80s machoism, which I think is a lot of what the movie's about too. Like these guys are supposed to be so tough, but they kind of get bodied so easily. And it's kind of Arnold who... He's like, they kind of bind Arnold to the female character in an interesting way, I find. And I think subverting those kind of things is what makes it a little uncomfortable but also exciting for people to watch. It kind of gives it that little extra juice.
See, this is why I made sure he was on this episode, guys.
I just have to say, because that makes me think of my main knocked several stars off of it critique, which was the female character. Like,
oof.
There just wasn't one. They hit one woman in this entire fucking movie.
Well, and yeah, it's also like when Rowan was talking about like how it fits slasher genres or giallo. Like this movie, like, it doesn't really have much sex appeal other than the buff dudes in it. Like, it's not like this, like, these people are hooking up and they're getting murdered for, like, premarital sex or anything like that. Like, you're completely missing, like, a scintillating feel, like, to this movie. And also, like, even the Vietnam War trappings for me, obviously, it's horrific.
Except for the smearing clay all over his body.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, which is just like, yeah, it's just like the dude, like, like the male form, I guess. But even like the Vietnam War stuff for me, like, they don't really portray it, I don't find, horrifically. Like, they just go in and they just like shred a full village of people and they're like all like cool and cracking jokes at it, you know, and whatnot. Like when you watch Apocalypse Now, like it's portrayed in a completely different light, where this is like a horrific thing. Like he's on this like basically this journey through hell in a way, where this is like, yeah, it's hot like hell. Yes, they're being pursued, but like, I mean, like, they're pretty capable. Like I said, they shred a whole village of people with basically without breaking a sweat, right? Like, it's like, I understand the argument for sure. And like, I even have notes of like, actually like, okay, this is like a horror shot when this guy is like stabbing the pig or whatever, like, you know, with the knife comes up in the air, you know, and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, I mean, I can see the argument. It's just, it wouldn't be the first thing that pops to mind, I guess, you know, for a horror movie for me.
So what it's sounding like to me is that you want a scene of Jesse Ventura rubbing mud on Arnold, maybe sensually.
I mean, if they were rubbing mud on each other, then the Predator came out and, you know, impaled them with a spear or something, both of them, like maybe I...
yes, a la Friday the 13th.
Exactly.
That double impaling, yeah.
Exactly.
You're onto something here. I think we need a Predator 3.
We need more governors. In the cast. Multiple
yeah, no,
governors
you're
in
right.
this cast.
Okay, so we have to find other people now to, like, round out the cast with. Who's your next pick is my question.
They all have to be Republican governors.
Oh, of course. It has to be Republican. Are we throwing, are we gonna, like, throw Trump in there as, like, the fucking boss or what? Like...
Oh, no.
We need Predator in New York. Staten Island.
I'm dead.
I did want to think for a second about, you know, I always giggle whenever I see this, because, I mean, it's pretty common knowledge now that, although I don't think they saved any of the footage, but, you know, there was a period in time when they were shooting this that Jean-Claude Van Damme was the Predator, and...
Oh...
I like to imagine my Predator doing the splits.
Yeah, doing split kicks, man. That'd take the movie up a notch for me, I think.
Like the scene in Cyborg where he's doing the splits between the walls, and then he jumps down and kills someone. Like he's doing the splits between the trees.
Yeah.
And he has the cake. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that we didn't get any footage of him in it. So, I mean, I guess if you're listening, you don't know, like I said, like Jean-Claude was originally cast as the Predator, and basically he was he was a whiny bitch about it.
Also, very
just happened to be in
monster
makeup,
design.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Was it all the
design.
prosthetics and stuff, like the same way, the same armor and everything? Because that would be like
No.
a while to get into makeup, right?
He was in a weird, like, chicken suit.
Oh my god, okay, listen, you can't just drop chicken suit on us, like...
They have, on the Blu-ray I watched, they have, like, some test footage of the original suit. And yeah, it's really, like, totally different.
Yeah, he was on, like, stilts, kind of like in Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
The actor, I forget the actor who played him, but he's in a bunch of Guillermo's stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, like, you can see he's on these, like, big, like, stilt boots kind of thing that makes him so tall, and that's basically what Van Damme was in. And I think, like, when they designed it, they were like, you need all these, like, pulleys and, like, this very intricate system to make it work. You can't just, like, it's not out of the box and just drop them in the set. And they were, like, filming in, like, the jungle. So, you know, it wasn't working, basically, the design. So they had to basically scrap that. And also, I think Van Damme is, like, significantly shorter than Arnold.
Yeah, I think they said like Van Damme's only 5'7".
Yeah, and Arnold's like 6'2", 6'3", or something.
Oh wow!
Oh my god, it's Rene Russo running around in a ditch for the whole movie all over again.
And also, the actor that ended up playing the Predator monster before that was in Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah,
and played Harry.
Oh my god! What the fuck?
I was gonna say, Kevin Peter Hall.
But he's like 7 feet tall. Like,
yeah,
he's like the guy who played the Xenomorph. Like, he's just huge.
Yeah. So definitely a better choice than Van Damme, I think, just because he had the stature, and he will return because he did reprised the role for 2 as well. He played like multiple roles in 2. And he's actually in the original Predator out of the suit. Basically, when they're escaping, and they're leaving, at the very end, he's the helicopter pilot. Basically, John McTiernan said that he felt so bad for him, like, being in this jungle, like, in an actual heat wave in this suit, that he was like, I had to make sure that his face is, like, actually gets on screen outside of the suit.
That's very considerate, honestly.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty friendly. Yeah, but, like, really, like, when you look into this movie, like, this is the perfect movie for, like, researching, because there's so many, like, crazy stories.
Don't get into, like, 4 or 5 conspiracy theories again.
No conspiracy theories. It's just like I was reading about that. Basically they just like gave Arnold like a jet. Like when he filmed this, I think he got married while they filmed it, or he had to go to a wedding, and they basically just gifted him a jet to use the entire time. And they were just like, yeah, like, here you go. This is the 80s. They were just spending frivolously.
I mean, he was probably a pretty big star at the time. I'd assume like this would be after Terminator and Terminator 2 and whatnot. So Arnold to me in this movie,
not Terminator 2. I think definitely Terminator. But
Terminator
2.
He shot this right after Commando.
Yeah, I think this is the movie that that kind of kicked him from like star to like megastar,
yeah, for sure.
Like,
geez, I thought Terminator 2 was earlier, but I guess not.
Like Conan was pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
Terminator's huge, but he's like has a very small range. In Terminator, I think he might have like 20 lines all together in the first Terminator movie.
Fair, yeah.
But this movie,
I feel like at that point in
really
Terminator, they still weren't confident that he could like carry a movie with dialogue.
Well, yeah, I'd make that argument for this movie too.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Don't respect Arnie like that.
I mean, Arnie's great when he's deadlifting a truck.
As far as I'm concerned,
yeah.
I actually think he's like, this is one of his best performances. Like, I think he's legit good in this movie.
He really embraced, and because you brought up like that.
At one point, I want to make that I will really go to bat for Arnold with is that nowadays with action stars like Jason Statham, The Rock, these guys, they have it in their contracts that they're not allowed to get like beat up in a movie. Like when they fight, they have to fight to a draw, and like like the Rock can't be made to look weak and stuff. Whereas Arnold actually pushed to be like really like he's like, I got to be like against the wall. Like I really have to be like beat to shit by this.
Kitty Pryde leaned up against the wall, bruised and beat up in X-Men.
So he really embraced that, which I think like a lot of. Which is what you're missing in a lot of like action movies nowadays.
That's so true, because honestly, like I said earlier, I like watched a lot of like action movies, and very specifically like Schwarzenegger movies with my dad. Like we would watch the marathons they'd have on TV all the time when I was a kid, and like that's honestly like something that always stuck out to me as a kid was like pictures that I have in my head of Arnold Schwarzenegger just beat to a pulp, like bruised and battered and cut and bleeding and like.
And it's funny because it's a lot like Die Hard, which is McTiernan also directed. Yeah. Where Bruce Willis is like very much like pushed to his limit.
Exhausted.
And that's kind of, you didn't really see that because it was like, the stoic cowboys and, what's his name? John Wayne and stuff like that. They never really, it never really felt like they were licked. They were always kind of like, slick and had the drop on the villain, whereas there was a very brief moment in like the 80s and 90s where you did see like action stars be a bit more vulnerable, and this kind of like brings back to my point where I think it's like subtly subversive of like that kind of 80s macho stuff where Arnold doesn't beat him in like a fist fight. He like uses stealth and he outthinks him and he tricks him into a trap kind of thing, as opposed to what you'd see now, which is just like The Rock just like beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, and he kills himself. in the end, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and I was gonna say too, to me that also lends itself to, like we said, the comparisons with like the slasher genre, because I mean that's what
Arnold's the final girl.
Final girl.
Yeah.
And like all great slashers, that's how you defeat the villain, the monster. Like it's like the stealth and setting up traps. And
what I find too is that in slasher movies, the victims are all like guilty of something. Like maybe it's like promiscuity, or like they're stuck up, or like, and that's what I find with there's like a Reddit post that gets into this, but like each one of the guys that the Predator kills,
they're like racist,
like Shane Black, who ended up directing the most recent Predator movie. Shane Black, right?
Which was really good.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So he dies first because he's like all bark, no bite, and he talks about how like his wife has a giant vagina, and then the Predator makes a giant slit in his stomach. Carl Weathers' character, the Predator cuts off the arm that he tries to arm wrestle with Arnold with. Yeah. And he's pushing pencils, and but his sin is that he's duplicitous, right? Like he tricks Arnold and the guys into this phony.
It gets them killed.
Reagan-esque death squad going into Central America killing communists, and then you got like, I think it's Billy, and Billy won't retreat. He wants to face the Predator head on. Like he's not like Arnold, who knows when to fight and when to duck, and so you got these kind of like. Each one has their own issue with like machismo, or like not living up to machismo, whereas Arnold is like the new masculinity, because on the one hand, he's tough, but he knows when to retreat and when to kind of pick his battles. So that's what I find interesting about this movie, because I feel like it kind of like, it's almost like a parody of like 80s machoism at the beginning, with this big like, let's go in there and kick ass and kill all these dudes. And then it's like, oh, wait, you just got tricked by the CIA to do like some U.S. imperialism in this like country. And now actually you're all committed war crimes. So we need to get the fuck out of here. Which is like another kind of like critique of like militarism, adventurism of, Vietnam, and then like Reagan in the 80s sending these death squads into Central America. But it's like, it's very tricky how it does it. Like, you think you're watching this, like, 80s schlockfest of, war porn, but it kind of sneaks in a little subversiveness.
Yeah, no, that's, the more I think about it, the more I like that. Like I said, that's why I brought you on, Brad.
I think it's a very generous reading of the movie. I understand people making those arguments. I don't think that's in the text itself, but I mean, I'm glad that people, look that much into it.
I do
like
love that
argument.
reading.
Yeah, that argument definitely makes it seem better to me as well. I just don't know if the movie itself, like I found all these characters to be like as deep as a puddle, Like, I don't know. I can't even remember most of their names, but I mean, that is a very good reading of the movie for sure.
And I just like, I like that reading of the movie because it skims over one of the huge problems the older I get with it, the more I have with it, which is that the problem of, the lack of women.
Oh, it doesn't pass the Bechdel.
Oh yeah. No, it doesn't pass anything. But
I will say that femininity is present in its absence, will be my argument here, because there's the lack of women roles. There's only one, but the fact that there is only one kind of like highlights the fact that this is about masculinity.
That's deep. I like it. I like that. Other than Mike's reading, that we just need more mud all over these men.
Also, fun fact.
Well, I mean, listen, if they did, they would all be alive. Am I right or am I right?
The gun.
Go ahead, Brad.
The gun that Jesse Ventura has, that like Gatling gun.
Oh yeah.
That's like where it first came from. Like, you see it so much now in like Doom, and I don't know.
You do see it a lot.
All the video games, but like that thing was originally on a helicopter, and they were trying to think like of ways. And again, this is like. It's an exaggerated phallus, basically.
Yeah.
And they were like, how can we give this guy this really sick gun to kind of differentiate himself? So they were like, let's get this Gatling gun that he can carry around. And they had to have like all kinds of like people with like squibs and shit to make it work. But that's where it came from, this movie. that you see in video games, because that's not a real gun. It's supposed to be attached to a helicopter.
I was gonna say too,
and of course, there's that fucking beautiful shot of it just spinning around with no bullets coming out, and it's like you're all fucking impotent pieces of shit, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's all I see.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like I said, I love
movie's
this movie.
playing 4D chess.
I'm not trying to be ungenerous, but I'm trying to acknowledge that I love it and that there's great things about it, while also saying that there's some horrifically awful things about it. But that shot alone speaks volumes about every character in this movie. So I love that. Yeah,
I think y'all are just slurping up the vine juice like that one guy out in the forest. just
Billy.
Loving this.
That was his name, wasn't it, Billy?
Was it Billy?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That actor was unhinged.
Sonny Landham.
Yeah, he was like, they'd go to bars and he'd be like crawling on the floor, like licking women's legs and stuff. And they had to get like a bodyguard to basically keep him out of trouble.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, which then reels me back to my previous point. So.
Well, I know, John McSherman, he said that the studio, absolutely didn't want them to hire him.
Yeah.
And that the bodyguard was part of the deal, was you can hire him, but he has to have a bodyguard. And he's he's massive just in real life in general.
Well, he played gangsters and stuff in pretty old movies before this one.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised because, like I said, it'd been a while since I had revisited this. Billy's probably one of the characters I remember most from it, but I couldn't remember, I knew in this that he played a Native American. I thought, man, I feel like this is gonna be a bad portrayal, but I was actually kind of surprised. It was really not that bad. You had the stereotypical he's a tracker.
I was gonna say there was stereotypes at play.
There was definitely stereotypes, but I felt for 87 it did a pretty alright job, way better than I would expect from just this kind of film.
Okay, and I just have to say, I don't want to be too negative, because obviously I've been I have problems, even though I love this movie. But I just have to say, because one of my first notes to me is also one of the reasons why, no matter what you think about this movie, that it has such a timeless appeal, and it's such a simple point, and I'm sure everyone's gonna agree, or most people will agree. You have to look at this, and just within the first 10 minutes of the movie, you look at it and go, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger literally in his prime. Think about it. This is literally him at his peak. He is Arnold. He has not hit the super cultural saturation. He's still youngish, he's this huge movie star, and he walks on and he's glowing, and he hasn't become a kind of parody of himself yet. And it's kind of nice, because you kind of have to put yourself in that cultural time and era and go man, it must have been crazy to just see him in his prime and not have the whole his whole career before and after be part of your viewing. You know what I mean? I just look at it and go, Arnold in his prime actually was even though he is a questionable actor and stuff, obviously, but he has such charm, and he oozes charisma, and
he's a star. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that this was such a really good example of that, because it was him kind of hitting the Hollywood moment, not just the niche action, you know what I mean? And I just felt when I was watching it, I had to take a moment and appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and
I think that's obviously a huge part of this movie. If you take him out of it, it's just going to be third-rate trash, right? Let's face it.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, to me, I think this is probably the best example, I would think, when you talk about Arnold as an actor, this to me is an argument for why he is a good actor. Because I think with watching the film, and then I said, a lot of the behind the scenes documentary stuff I watched, and using those together, it's very interesting how important it was to him that, like, everyone else in the movie kind of, like, got their shine. Because they talk about a lot, like, John McTiernan talked a lot about how most of the, like, witty lines in this were all Arnold. And it was actually Arnold's choice to be like, no, I want all those lines, like, split up. And so every person can kind of get their time in, like, and he was very much about, like, this is like an ensemble cast. This isn't just me. And I think just what he brought to this in general, like, I mean, also the credit, like, he did almost all his own stunt work in this, which, I mean, you're in the jungle. Most of these guys, you know, got poisoned by the water at the hotel, like, while they were filming this. So it's just like super impressive. I think,
how many burns do you think Arnie got with all those, like, pyrotechnics and sparks and stuff falling over?
There was a lot of sparks in this goddamn movie.
When I was watching it, I was like, man, he's just there shirtless, just like all these, like, flames falling on him and stuff. Because, like, you could tell with at least the pyrotechnics that they were real. It wasn't, like, bad visual effects until the explosion at the end, obviously. But yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, it reminds me of Stanley Kubrick talking about the actor who played the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket. Forget that actor's name.
Arlie Ermey.
Yeah, and he was like, Arlie Ermey, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but nobody could have played that part better than he did. And I feel like when Arnold, like, shines in a movie, it's the same thing. Like, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but no one could have done this role better than he did. Like, I don't even think, like, Sylvester Stallone or, like, some of the other action stars who have a better range than him.
Or Van Damme, right?
Could
like,
carry, like, that movie like that. Like,
yeah.
Like Terminator, Predator, Terminator 2, like True Lies, some of the, like, really big Arnold movies. Like I said, like,
but that era, like, you give him that, like, decade,
like,
that was unstoppable. You know, he was like
he's on fire,
juggernaut of, like, action charisma.
Well, that's the thing,
right?
too. Like, he picks his roles really well.
Yeah.
He did at least until, like, Jingle All the Way or something.
I was gonna say Twins, a masterpiece. Twins.
Yeah, absolutely. Kindergarten Cop. I'm sorry, we had a conversation about that a couple weeks ago. I was like, Kindergarten Cop is an unbeatable
At that point, I think he was
comedy.
like 50 years old, and he's like, man, I can't keep doing these, like, shirtless action scenes anymore.
I think I would agree with you, though.
I do, however, still have guns that children can hang off of, so...
But he's like almost 40 by Predator. Like, he wasn't super young in that movie, you know? He looks amazing, but, like, probably he's not as young as you think he is there. Like, I think he's past 30 for sure.
Yeah, and that's like when Mike was saying, like, in his prime, like, I've seen, like, Pumping Iron, and I have to say, like, Arnie is, like, bigger and, like, you know, more jacked for sure in, like, Pumping Iron. And it's weird, like, when I was watching this, I was like, yeah, of course he's jacked. Like, of course he's in excellent shape. But it's funny, like, how our perceptions of what is considered muscular now is, like, very different than back then. Like, because, like, you see, like, The Rock, like, just, like, yoked out on, like, I don't know, whatever he's on. Or, like, a lot of the, like, the Marvel superheroes or DC superheroes, like, some of those guys, like, get just as big, if not bigger. I think about, like, Tom Hardy as, like, Bane or something, you know, like, just, like, absolutely of an insane size.
I gained 70 pounds of muscle in 9 months. Like,
But I do agree. I agree that, like, Arnie was, like, perfect for this role. I was trying to think of, like, who would have they cast in this now if they wanted to make it? And yeah, I certainly don't want to see the Predator with The Rock as the lead. So yeah, I guess I have to agree with you there.
If they made this movie now, it would be like Ryan Reynolds, you know, like Ryan Reynolds, nothing against Ryan Reynolds, but, like, it would be him making stupid fucking jokes, like trying to break the fourth wall and trying to, like, oh, we're going to be really clever and you know, have these really, like, self-conscious jokes and try to, like, you know, lampshade some of the silliness of the movie instead of, like, playing it straight, which they do, which is what you need. And even, like, Shane Black now with the most recent Predator, it's like just the need to, like, make everything like fucking Joss Whedon, where it's like we gotta have the silly quips, we gotta have the quips and the one-liners and the self-conscious humor.
We've got to show that we know this is the 6th movie in the series, right? Like,
I mean, they do
they don't want to
numerous
play it
quips
straight.
in this.
Like,
Yeah, 2. It's just
Yeah,
it's not the same writing. You're right. It's not like referential or poking fun at itself. It's not like taking wind out of its own sails. But I mean, there is dozens of quips in this too.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
like
Arnold,
I said,
Arnold...
like to me, that was the kind of charm of it, was that it was quippy, but he hadn't yet descended into self-parody.
That's true.
Was what he would be parodying himself for 9 or 10 years down the road, right?
True. Yeah.
And they had to give Shane Black all the quips because I know he was talking about originally his only character trait in the film was supposed to be that he wore a red beret, and then they were just like, "Why the fuck would
you might say he wore a raspberry beret." Anyone who
well, this was just after Lethal Weapon. Predator came after Lethal Weapon, and apparently they cast him because they were like, "Oh, well, you're like one of the most in-demand screenwriters in Hollywood now. Why don't you act in this movie and you can also like, you know, advise on the script?" And he's like, I'm an actor. If you want me to like work on the script, you have to pay me extra for like being a script writer. Yeah. So they're like, well, we're going to kill you off first.
You did get a couple of really good vagina jokes in, though. So. Yeah.
One of them did make me laugh. I'm not gonna lie. The stupid Echo joke kind of got me almost as like anti-humor.
So I mean, I feel like we've been talking about this movie, this much, and we haven't even talked about the Predator yet, which I think holds up still. I think the Predator looks fantastic, and of course,
Stan Winston.
Out of the stupid CG effects, yes, you're 100%.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Well, Stan Winston, man, like,
yeah,
The Thing,
like just
the unimpeachable. Everything he
absolutely
does
like a career that speaks for itself. Truly,
like apparently it was something like I don't know if it was Stan Winston or one of the guys that work with him, but he was talking to James Cameron, and James Cameron was like, I've never seen like an alien with really good mandibles. Like on screen, like, and I think Stan Winston was like, challenge accepted. Like, I'm gonna fucking mandible the shit out of this monster. And they just had like just like 8 people working those mandibles and it looks amazing. Like when
it does. It looks the practical effects are stupendous. Yeah. It's just all the fucking CG that is obviously horrifically dated and cheap. But like, again, the taking off of the mask is like, it will make you gasp. It's so
like,
well done.
One of my like pet peeves about like modern horror is I find like these directors come on and they're like, oh, it's so much scarier when you don't show the monster and when you create dread. And, it's like Jaws, man. You don't show the monster. And it's like, no, man, you got to show the monster at some point, okay? Like, give us the fucking goods. Like, give us the reveal.
That's the build-up, but there has to be a release, and the release is the reveal.
For like 2/3 of the movie, you don't
can't just edge for 2 hours and then not come, right? Like, sorry.
So for like 2 hours, for the first 2/3 of the movie, it's like invisible, and then it shows up with this wearing the mask, and then in the last like 3 minutes of the movie, it takes off the mask, and it's like,
and the mask is actually pretty cool too.
And it's
like
the payoff, like they nail it.
I agree that the visual effect is good, and when he takes off the mask, though, do you guys actually think that's cool looking? Like, even like, are you guys like, oh man, that's such a badass creature, or are you like, oh man, this guy's gonna say motherfucker in the second movie? Like, like, how do you guys actually feel about the design?
The only note I have written about the second movie is, quote, motherfucker.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, we might as well talk about it. We might as well talk about it now. Like, to me, like I said, I love Predator. I love this first movie. I could do without, like, the last 2 minutes of this movie. The minute the Predator, like, just talks English in the first movie, I mean, I think you kind of lose it, and then it just has, like, the laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, credit,
laughing is universal.
He does.
I will give it that. I will give it that.
It mimics the laughter of another character.
Yeah. And, credit where credit's due. I'm trying to remember his name. Is it like Peter Cullen, or it's the guy that did the voice for Optimus Prime that does the voice for the Predator.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. So what the fuck did that other guy do? Just stand around in a suit all day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like every other person in a horror movie, I guess.
And like
every person who ever played Jason. Kane Hodder got
it was like Darth Vader. Like
Darth
Vader had what, like 3 different actors or something.
Mm-hmm.
I get the mimic thing. I guess my issue was, and once we get into the second one, we'll talk about more. Like,
Of course.
I
yeah.
always assumed the mimicking was part of the helmet, like the outfit and the electronics of it, and him recording and repeating stuff. But I didn't, like, to me it was just weird. I didn't like the fact that he could just audibly, with his vocal cords, be like, all right, like, what's up? And to me, I could have gave or taken. Although I know Colton already said he didn't like it. I really liked the painted explosion at the end.
Oh, really?
I'm a sucker.
Okay.
I mean, it gives me Killer Clown from Outer Space vibes, hardcore, which Mike doesn't like, but
How dare you?
But
Don't
I loved.
speak for me, but you're right.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the design. Like, for me, like, the xenomorph is unmistakably, like, horrific and cool and, like, so perfect. And then for me, it's like whenever the Predator takes off his mask, it's just kind of goofy looking. And even, like, the first time when I've ever seen
if you're going to
it,
compare
you know?
it to Giger, obviously it's no comparison.
Yeah, but if we're talking
No
about this as a
comparison.
horror movie, it's supposed to be horrific when he takes off his mask, not goofy.
You're right.
And it's goofy instantly. But that's just me. But
So, I was gonna say, why don't we land the plane on this one? We still got a whole nother one to talk about.
let's do it.
So we'll answer that final question. Is it unsettling? And we will start with you, Colton.
No, by and large, this isn't unsettling. The most unsettling is how bored I was in the second act. But the third act, I will give it. There's some good moments. I think both of these movies, spoiler for Predator 2, I think the third act of these movies are pretty strong. And this one specifically, when Arnie's all by himself and it's actually like the hunter and the hunted, and, you know, predator and prey.
The final girl.
I did enjoy that, but no, I didn't find it very unsettling at all. What about you, Mike?
No, the only thing I found unsettling about it, I mean, listen, like, when I was watching it when I was a youngster, I loved this. When we were having our, Arnold-a-thons, this was always one of my favorite ones. But,
I'm a raw heat guy.
like, listen, every year that goes by, like, I've said it numerous times, I do have a lot of problems with it, and the problems are growing every time I watch it. But, I still do love it, but at the same time, like, I find it less unsettling, but I'm also, again, sort of appreciating the horror tropes that it did borrow more and more every time I watch it, and just going like, oh yeah, like, I see where they're coming from, and kudos for them. It just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't give me that horror, like, frisson, as a lot of movies would. But I think the thing I find most horrifying about it is its blatant ripoff of Nightmare on Elm Street in the final act. But anyway, I mean, listen, it is what it is. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger's no Heather Langenkamp, but there we have it. Brad, what do you think? Unsettling? Scary? Creepy?
I wouldn't necessarily use those words, no. Like, there's just so much action, comedy baked into it. And like I said, too, that the fact that the monsters become so iconic that it's hard to put the scare factor back into it. But I think its strengths are in other aspects aside from, like the frisson, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the unsettling or stuff like that.
And it's just so funny because, like, you're right, the first movie really does depend on the, like, getting the monster alone and, like, showing that, the unmasking and stuff like that. And it's just, and when you don't know what it is or what it looks like or what its context is, or it's, like, raison d'etre, as you do when you come at it and knowing, like, having all this, like, cultural knowledge of it and knowing that it's, like, a bounty hunter or whatever, it's like, you kind of have to, like, come at it, like, with a clean slate, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's unsettling at all.
Maybe, like, for audiences at the time, but, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of have to, like, again, it's one of those movies that I think you have to place it very specifically in its, like, cultural context.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's interesting, too, how much of it is in broad daylight. Like,
yeah.
I remember watching, both Alien versus Predator, and I'm like, I can't see a fucking thing. Like, everything is so dark in those
I know.
movies.
Like, are there no suns on these other planets? Like,
and I think 90% of that is because it's like we have to cover our shitty CGI.
Yeah.
So like,
they're like, it's literally
if they can't see it, they can't see that it's bad. Whereas like most of Predator until the last confrontation is in broad daylight in the jungle, which again you don't really see a lot nowadays.
And I mean, I was going to say too, I mean, obviously when this came out, people loved it because, I mean, we don't do the budget game anymore, but I mean, it made $98.3 million on an $18 million budget. So it was... yeah, people obviously loved it. So I guess we will land the train on this one and we will get into our rating. If you are new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, and slay. And Brad, you are the guest of honor, so we'll let you start.
Slay for me, capital S, slay.
How about you, Colton?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably sounded pretty negative on it the entire time, but like that's just the thing. When people like love it, you kind of got to try and balance it out a little bit. It's an okay, you know. There's good effects in here. You know, Arnold is Arnold, and I don't know. I it's just for both of these movies, I am largely bored for like a good 40 minutes in the middle, which is like crazy to say, especially with all the like explosions and guns and whatnot. It's a little bit of a slog to get through. Maybe it is the baggage that I've seen Alien vs. Predator first before I did see Predator. So, you know, I don't get anything on the unmasking. I already know what he looks like. He's portrayed as a hero, for God's sakes, in Alien vs. Predator. So yeah, it's an okay for me. I wouldn't say it's bad or anything. What about you, Rowan?
I'm going to go with Brad on this one. I'm definitely giving it a slay. I'm a fan of this, and what's kind of crazy is I've watched this like definitely a couple times in the last year. Just kind of like, you know, where I work, like we always have like movies on and stuff. So in the middle of the night, we've thrown this on. And if you asked me not too long ago, I probably wouldn't have said this was a slay. This isn't one I revisit like often. But yeah, the more I watch it, the more I love it, the more I get out of it. And I'm just like, man, the more I appreciate Arnold. So capital S like Brad. How about you, Mike?
Okay. Listen, I will preface this and say, like anybody, love Arnold. He's my boy, like when I was a youngster. Again, watched all the marathons, love all his movies, love him. This was always one of my favorites. Revisiting it after, I haven't watched it in years, I will say, before this, so I was happy to revisit it. Normally it would be a slay, but I've kind of bumped it down to an okay right now, because while I still appreciate the aspects of it that like thrilled me over the years, and the like things that Brad was talking about that are actually like the readings of it that are very like stimulating and actually like give it more like vigor than it probably deserves. Like they're there, but like I also have this other part of me that at this point in my life when I'm watching a movie and there's like no women in it and like no like LGBT characters or anything like that, I don't have time for that anymore. And I know that, like, the whole point is, like, this stupid fucking machismo, but, like, it's not critical enough of that to make it worth it to me, you know what I mean? So, like, I'm watching it and I'm just, like, I find myself losing patience. I'm just, like, I can't watch this bunch of fucking macho dudes anymore. Because it's not skewering them hard enough for me. I mean, yes, they do get skewered a couple times physically. Yeah. And I understand that, but, like... It's not... They get skinned. Yeah, they get skinned. But the payoff isn't there enough for me to make it worth sitting through an almost 2-hour movie where it's like, there's one woman and there's, you know, no characters who are of maybe an alternate gender or sexuality. Anyway, I can't... That's my main critique of it. And I know that pretty much can spread to any movie of the time era, but that's the way it is. I just have to say that. So it's an okay for now, because it drove me nuts in that aspect. But it's like a slay that got knocked down to an okay, but that, depending on the mood I'm in when I'm watching it, might go back up to a slay, okay?
Another interesting thing that I'll say just before we finish with regards to the female character, like, if they were to make this now, like, Arnold would bang Mrs. by the end of the movie, right? Mm. Like, they would have some kind of romantic...
absolutely.
...conclusion. Whereas, you know,
that's like the saving grace that wasn't that get to the chopper, and the chopper is my fucking dick, right? Yeah, so it's like I will give it that, like, that's a saving grace, but like to me it's not a big enough saving grace. I can't stand a movie full of just men. You know, like that's what it comes down to. Too many dicks on the dance floor, like, honestly.
So we got two okays, two slays. Sounds to me like two people are right, two people are wrong.
I agree.
I know what two are right.
So, this is the time in the episode, go to the concession stand, go to the bathroom, that intermission break, and then we'll be back with the trailer for Predator 2, and, we will get right into it.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It came for the thrill of the hunt.
He's on safari. Lions. Tigers. The bears. Oh my.
This Thanksgiving, he's in town with a few days to kill. Predator 2, rated R.
Predator 2 was released in 1990 and is directed by Stephen Hopkins, written, once again, by brothers Jim and John Thomas, and the story is as follows. In the midst of a grueling heatwave, Lieutenant Michael Harrigan struggles to solve a series of grisly murders. His initial suspicions lead him to believe that the culprit can be found among the warring gangs laying waste to LA streets, but soon he unmasks a terrible truth, that the killer is a fearsome extraterrestrial being whose keen hunting abilities and camouflage make it the ultimate killing machine. As every plan is thwarted, Harrigan hatches a plan of his own to defeat the creature the old-fashioned way, mano a mano.
So,
Wow.
First experiences. Was this our first time seeing the film? We will start with you, Mike.
Honestly, I saw it once, when I was a youngster, and I remember not really liking it, so I never watched it again. I was like, oh yeah, this is one of those, times when the sequel was forgettable, and kind of forgot that it existed. Until we had to watch it for this, and then I watched it and realized that I forgot about it for a reason. So, Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I actually do remember the first time I watched it, because when I was in high school and I was going through the dollar section of Alan's video.
Oh yes, oh my god, love it.
I should watch Predator 2 because I really like Predator.
Yeah.
And the only scene I remember is when they analyze the Predator's weapon and they're like, none of this exists on our periodic table of elements. And I was like, I learned about that in school. I know about the periodic table of elements. But otherwise, just a very forgettable movie.
Yeah.
How about you, Colton?
Yeah, I'm similar. I watched this right around the same time when I watched Predator 1, where, I think I've seen Predator 1, once or twice other than this viewing. I've definitely only seen this once, and it was just, because my mom wanted me to watch Predator 1 and 2, so... Yeah, I've seen it once. I couldn't remember if I had any strong opinions on it, but honestly, back when I watched this, it was pretty much every movie's good. Didn't really have too much of a critical eye towards things, so it was back whenever AVP came out, I watched this.
So this one, I've seen this. I've seen this one way more than I've seen the first one.
Rowan, you need
you have.
therapy. You need therapy.
I know, right? Oh,
Please,
man.
anybody who's in the mental health field, DM Rowan after you
reach out.
Listen to this episode.
So, I think it's more, the reason I've seen it more is this one I definitely owned. I had this one on VHS or DVD. I definitely owned it a couple times. And I'm sure it's a case of I found it in a $5 bin and I'm like, sweet, Predator 2.
$5? You're being very generous, my friend.
But I remember watching this all the time when I was younger. I absolutely loved this one when I was younger. So yeah, definitely have seen it before. So we know where we're starting. Favorite scene, favorite kill. We'll let you go first, Brad, this time.
I think the opening action sequence is pretty good. I think I was kind of softened by it. So the opening action sequence was fun. And I'll say my favorite kill, honestly, the only one I can really remember is when the Predator kills the Jamaican gang king and takes his head as the trophy. And a kind of borderline racist connection between the dreadlocks, I guess they were trying to do.
Yeah.
I love how generous you're being with borderline racist.
I like that when you look about the movie that I saw that like Ebert reviewed this, and like Ebert's whole review is just about how racist this movie is.
I mean, Roger Ebert never lies. I mean, he does, but, you know.
How about you, Colton? Favorite kill, favorite scene?
Much like Brad, all of the kills kind of blend together in this. They're all like whatever. So my favorite scene is when Harrigan says, "Okay, pussyface, your move." And the Predator just looks back at him and says, "Shit happens." That's the best scene in the whole movie.
See, this is what happens when you make a movie of the Predator without Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the Predator then has to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the issue with this whole fucking movie.
Oh man, what's
they
your
tried to make the
scene?
Predator, this silent alien hunter, into a wisecracking Arnold Schwarzenegger. No.
How about you, Mike?
Okay, I'm gonna be brutally honest here and say that I only remember maybe about 30% of this movie, and really all I can remember of that 30% that I said I remember is the scene when they bust in and like the two people are fucking, and then they come in and like everybody's dead and skinned and naked and hanging from the ceiling. That's all I remember is this like fucking naked body hanging from the ceiling while they're just like going around having a conversation. Honestly, other than that, if it wasn't for the fucking ass that was like on the screen the whole time, I honestly wouldn't remember a single thing for this movie. Sorry, Ro. Sorry, that's just the way it is. I told you I'd be honest. Listen.
It's alright.
Ro's gonna have to do some heavy lifting for this one.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get your big old fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger guns out now.
And I was gonna say, like,
what about you?
My most iconic scene, kill, the one that always stuck with me ever since I first seen it is towards the beginning. The Jamaicans like bust into like the whatever it is, like the Colombian gang lord.
It's Colombians, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like having sex, and the Predator basically comes and kills everybody. I just always remember that. It's probably just from seeing it as a kid, and I was like, oh, what? Like, people doing it, and then, oh, what? Now they're dead. So I always remembered that. And then my favorite scenes, which always made me laugh on this watch, too, are all of the Tony Pope stuff, the hardcore news or whatever. And I think more so...
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I was like, what? Oh, okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, Tony Pope.
Okay, my note was, is this guy a wrestling person?
No, I think he...
I literally, like, my note was, is this guy like a wrestling announcer? I don't know who Tony Pope is. Like, is he the Pope? Like, I don't know.
The guy that plays him is Morton Downey Jr. And his Wikipedia, and they do talk about it on the special features for the Blu-ray. Apparently, he is considered the guy that pioneered trash TV. I guess he had a show that was Jerry Springer before Jerry Springer.
Okay, I'm into that.
And that's why they casted him for this role. And I was going to say, watching it this time, I think the minute we get Tony Pope on screen, this is really where I'm like, why did we not get a Predator RoboCop crossover? Because this whole movie, I don't know about you guys, but this whole movie feels like RoboCop. Like the same,
That's a good point.
Same kind of like landscape, like over the top violence, like the gang.
Well, because it's more of a police procedural.
Yeah, like that opening
that they shoehorned Predator into. It's
but
like
I think the
literally,
problem
if you told me that they wrote this as a police procedural and then at the last minute had to like rewrite it so that it was a Predator movie, I would 100% believe it.
Problem is, like, I feel like RoboCop again is like similar to the first Predator, where it's like a subversiveness of like, police, military, like whereas Predator 2 is like, oh man, the minorities in LA, they're getting crazy. We need cops to get in there.
I was like, there's so much
take
in this
care of
that is,
business. Like,
it's actually like, whereas in the first one I was like, oh, I have issues with the like no women and the like blowing up villages full of non-white people and stuff. But, like, I get the context. And then in this, I was like, what are they? They're literally just like, okay, here we go. Like, let's just throw everything into the meat grinder and make a big old fucking sausage of shit with it.
I don't know, man. I kind of feel like the first Predator is just as racist as this movie. I don't know. It's just literally like, it's just like
I'm not
fodder.
saying it's not, but I'm saying like there's you can at least kind of make a like really weak as water argument. You know what I mean? That like,
I mean, we're cheering for the minorities to get mowed down on screen, and Predator 1 is like what you're supposed to be feeling.
But again, that's why
like,
I had an issue with it, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's just
no
for
women,
me, it's
all
like,
the like people of color getting just literally destroyed by Gatling guns. Like,
for me, it's like, more of the same.
Yeah, well, this was except with somehow less character development.
But Gary Busey.
Yeah. But Gary Busey in a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
In a Pop-Tart wrapper.
And this was his first movie after his motorcycle accident. He died. He got revived. He died for a couple minutes and didn't think he was ever gonna act again. And then he came back because he had to be in Predator 2. I was gonna say, obviously the first glaring difference in this is no Arnold, which the more I read about, the more is kind of disappointing that the end dispute was over $250,000.
Oh my God. Come on.
That was how much extra on top of what they were going to pay him to be in it that he wanted, and the studio refused to pay it.
I say good on Arnold for sticking to his guns and not even budging, just that's crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? Even with that $250,000 that they saved, the movie still looked like shit. Spoiler alert, the movie looks like shit.
I might be in a very small minority in this one, but I'm kind of happy because I actually really like I like Glover in this. I'm a fan.
Dude, how can you like Glover in this?
Are you out of your mind?
He moves in slow motion the entire movie. I thought I was watching a Life Alert ad for most of this. He's so old looking at as he moves like he's 80.
I listen, I was a fan. You're not going to convince me that this isn't a masterpiece.
He's I don't know.
I was going to say, to me, this really felt like, a comic book movie. I think it had that feel. I mean, there definitely had to be that inspiration there. The comics, Alien vs. Predator was a comic before they started making this. And I know they did say that they, where we get the tease of the alien head, that was actually a nod to the comic book. Because they were while we were making this, that comic was really big, and we were aware that these universes were kind of joining and giving that nod. But I don't know, it just, to me, it had that feel of just a Batman movie, those 90s Batman movies, or nothing to be taken too seriously. Everything is kind of exaggerated from the violence and just the ridiculous, the heat wave. I thought it was pretty funny listening to the writers about it, because they really thought this was pure genius. And the interviews were awesome because they were just we thought what if we took him out of one jungle and put him in another jungle, the concrete jungle.
Urban jungle.
I do like the opening shot. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty good, just with all the trees, and it's okay, we're going back to the jungle, and then it pulls up and it's oh no, it's LA. That is a cute little shot there to open the movie on.
And I mean, they were, they were saying stuff. The heat wave, they obviously were very aware of climate change. They wanted to make a political statement.
I love how cute it is that you think that's saying stuff. That's so adorable, Ro.
I think all the actors knew what kind of movie they were getting into. If you get a chance, anyone listening, buy the Blu-ray for this. Do it just for the Gary Busey interviews, because they are batshit crazy.
I bet.
It's pretty interesting. He has an entire backstory for his character that definitely wasn't written or told to him. All about how his character actually was in the first one. You just never saw him. And he was like the puppet master pulling the strings. It was just like absolutely nuts. And it's awesome. But this like leading thread through all of it was the actors talking about like, oh, like, you know, we saw in the script, we were definitely making like commentary on what the future could look like for us if we don't address crime and pollution, which...
I love how the future was 1997.
That's right.
Which,
man.
by the way, is my first fucking note of this whole movie. Not 1997.
I love movies that the future is already past.
We love how that was 7 years in the future. Like,
why even write it 7 years in the future? Did they believe like the world was going to go that much to shit in 7
like,
years?
Literally, like 7 years is such a short period of time.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I guess that's what they were trying to go for. Like,
that's true.
It's gonna keep getting worse, and you know.
I kind of have a theory now. They didn't talk about this in anything I read or watched, but I mean, like we said, obviously they tried to get Arnold for it, and since they couldn't get him, the idea was that his character has died. So I feel like they just pushed it in the future. Maybe I didn't watch it hard enough. Like, I don't know. Apparently, the backstory is supposed to be that he died of radiation from the Predator in the from the explosion in the first one.
Where in the movie is this even vaguely hinted at?
We all need to go back and watch this one again.
Do not give me commentary shit. Where in the actual movie itself is this even remotely hinted at?
I think they only hint that they're like, oh, something similar happened in South America 10 years ago.
Is that somebody says something happened in South America?
Well, I don't know.
Was it Gary Busey, I think, that said that? Yeah.
No, it was
the guy wearing not a tinfoil hat, but a tinfoil entire bodysuit.
It was Stephen Hopkins that talked about it. I felt like a lot was on the cutting room floor.
Well, unfortunately, the cutting room floor does not help when you're watching the movie.
So, this was the first movie ever to get an NC-17 in the United States.
When did Showgirls come out?
Oh, I think it was after this. Yeah, Showgirls was after 1990. But yeah, so apparently a lot got cut. Apparently this was way more gory. He said, like, they went full in on the violence, and he said they had to really, really cut down a lot of stuff. And, you know, I'm surprised Mike hasn't said anything about Stephen Hopkins yet. Nightmare on Elm Street alumni.
Which one did he do?
He did 5.
I was gonna say he did... I mean, we're not gonna call it the worst, because it isn't, but it's in the bottom 2.
Which one's 5?
The Dream Child.
Is that the one where Mrs. gets turned into a bug?
No, that's number 4, which is one of the best. It's the one after that,
good.
where the guy gets sucked into his own comic book.
Okay,
and then Freddy
have no
turns
memory
into
of 5.
the Loco Maniac or whatever, and like...
I only brought that up, so they hired him because they saw Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and talked about how much they loved it, and so he got hired to do this.
They talked about how it was, at that point, when there was only 5 of them, the most pedestrian and boring of all of them.
Yo, I'm looking at his IMDb, and apparently he made the Dark Tower pilot that was supposed to be really good.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work on stuff. I was gonna say the amazing Hilary Swank, The Reaping.
Oh man, Lost in Space with
Mimi Rogers?
With Joey.
Yeah.
With what's his name? Matt LeBlanc.
Okay, you
Mimi
go
Rogers,
Joey,
yeah.
I go Mimi Rogers. Yeah, it's our priorities right here.
Oh, the Ghost in the Darkness, man, that movie slaps.
Yeah,
underrated.
That movie does slap. I 100% will agree with you on that.
My boy Val Kilmer. I'll go to bat for
Val Kilmer and
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. I'm like, why am I blanking on this man's name? He's literally in 2 of my favorite movies of all time.
If we want positives about this film, though, Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton in a fucking suit with the worst shoulder pads I've ever seen.
And I mean, this finish.
Bill Paxton's in Terminator, Aliens and Predator. That's I mean, come on.
That's
man, range. The range of the
Give the man his flowers. Give the man his flowers.
I will never deny a laurel for Bill Paxton. Yeah.
But I mean, the guy literally got killed by an alien and a Predator. Though I think the only guy.
And a Terminator.
Super impressive. I was waiting for Mike to also complain that yet again we go with the one female.
Oh, listen, do not even get me started. Maria Conchita Alonso.
See, you know her name. I only know her as the woman from The Running Man.
But I love that you know that she's from The Running Man.
Shout out to Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I thought we could have the discussion on this one too. How do we feel about this one as a horror movie compared to the first one? We had the argument about the first one, but do you think there's more of a case for this one or less of a case?
Girl, no. Absolutely not.
I feel like they did.
The artistry that was present in the first one. It's like John Carpenter versus whoever directed
White of the Eye.
It's kind of like
Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
I was going to say, I think that's one of actually the flaws of this movie is that it does try to do like more of a horror movie instead of probably leaning more into the action part of it. Like, I think it's kind of like you got to do the aliens thing where you have to raise the bar. Like, you can't put the cat back in the bag. Like, we know what the Predator looks like. We know what it can do. Like, get more of them.
Yeah, you can't lock someone down on a ship with one alien and have them run around in a haunted house.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like Aliens 3 where they tried to bring it back and it just didn't work. Like, I think you need to raise the bar a bit more, which is the mistake they made, I think, with that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I kind of felt the same. Like, I felt in terms of horror, this attempt was more of an attempt to make it a horror movie. I thought there was more kind of horror-based, I wouldn't say they unsettled me, but like more scenes I'm like, oh yeah, that's creepy in this than the first one. Like when he's recording the kid about like, do you want some candy? And then he's like playing that back in the robotic voice. And, like, doing things like hanging Glover's partner's, like, necklace on the tree. And, like, I thought there was more, the beheading we already talked about, like, the beheading of the Jamaican.
It was more toying with your prey.
Yeah.
Than there was in the first one.
And I felt like the attempt was there. It's just,
But maybe there's less stalking. There's more toying with your prey, but less stalking. And it's like, which is scarier?
But based on what you're saying, Rowan, it sounds like they did try that, and that maybe they just got burned by the rating.
And they got burned by not having as much talent.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, for me, like, as a horror movie, I kind of got to, like, pose, like, do you guys think, like, a David Fincher 7 is a horror movie? Because, like, this is trying to go for a gritty cop procedural, and, like, I realize having someone hung upside down, flayed, is, like, horrific, but, I mean, Criminal Minds or something like that does that. Like, it's just, like, I don't know if, like, just having pure gore is enough for me to call it, like, a horror movie. Like, I do get what Rowan's saying with the candy part. That's, like, the one part that I'm like, oh, okay, maybe. Although I have seen a lot of serial killer stuff where they toy with people. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like they're just trying to pose the Predator as a serial killer in this entire movie. And all the moments that are, like, horror or trying to be horror are just like, oh, we had a couple of people in the first one hung upside down. Now we're going to put 5 or 6 people hung upside down. And,
but
that's
then
obviously
they undermine
scarier.
that whole thing by having it like, oh, it's not the first guy, who's still alive or whatever. It's a whole race of them. So it's like, okay, cool. So this, like, literally, it's not even a serial killer narrative in disguise. It's just
I guess that's true, but
is.
Like, yeah, they're still looking for some sort of killer or gang war, I guess, is kind of the vibe of the first part. Yeah, that is like, I don't know. I can see the argument for this one just as much as the first one. I don't know if I'd really say either of them are a straight up horror movie, though.
Like I said, I just felt this one had more sequences. Like another sequence I thought that was fairly effective was like the subway. Like where Bill Paxton kind of gets murdered, I guess. Well, he gets murdered later as the Predator drags him down the subway. But like where we kind of get...
I think it's so cute that you remember parts of this movie.
Well, I was just going to say,
it's so adorable that you remember any individual scene from this whole movie.
To me, that gives me, like, to me, that was a more traditional, like, kind of monster movie vibe. Like, we have the Predator,
the flickering
like
lights and whatnot. Yeah,
like the flickering
Well,
lights.
I'm just gonna say, like, obviously I have the same problems with this one as I had with the first one, which was like a largely paper male cast. Unfortunately, it also suffers from something that the first one doesn't, which is a lack of, like, recognizable people. Because at least the first one, they stacked it with, like, actual people who had charisma and that were recognizable, not just because they were known in other capacities. Yeah, but they had personalities, right? And the actors were actually competent, and they had people who were recognizable as, you know, actors or wrestlers or whoever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they all, even though they were all largely forgettable and they still all kind of blended together, you know, you look at it and you still go, oh yeah, okay, like, I get this. Like there was this group of guys and you can kind of go the jokey guy or whatever, you know what I mean? But, like, in this, there was literally no way to tell one character apart from the other. There was just
Except Gary Busey.
Except Gary Busey.
Because he's Gary Busey.
Because he's Gary Busey and he wore a Pop-Tart wrapper for
he had
like
a very
10
small
minutes.
role in this movie. I keep forgetting like how
It's
small
too small. It's too small.
Yeah.
He should have chewed up at least another 30 minutes of screen time.
Whenever I used to think about this movie, I'd always be like, oh, it's so terrible. It sucks. It's awful. But then when I rewatch it, I'm like, it's not like, there's nothing really that jumps out at me as like awful aside from
all the effects,
the Jamaicans and the Colombians,
and the Jamaicans and the political undertones, and
yeah. But I think like for me, a lot of it's like you're trying to do a police procedural, but like the audience knows what the answer is,
who the killer is. Yeah,
like,
the entire time.
Even like not even like Predator, rewatching it, we know what the Predator is. But in this one, we're like, well, we've seen the first one.
Yeah.
We know it's an alien, yeah.
No one's going into Predator 2 having not watched Predator.
Yeah.
So we're like, so this dude's like, you know, on the prowl for the Predator.
It's just like gang war.
We're like, it's the Predator, man. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Get to the fucking... It's just like, there's no tension with that. But like, it's a shame because I do think there are, like Rowan says, a couple moments that are solid, but like it's just an ultimately forgettable movie.
I don't think
it also suffers from a 1 hour and 48-minute runtime. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I got a note there about that I literally checked the time left after the train sequence because I was like, okay, you know, we just killed off a bunch
like
of people.
halfway through the movie.
We're getting ready to end this bad boy now. We're landing the plane.
Are we done? Nope, we still got almost an hour.
And I had 48 minutes left. Yeah, when I checked that, I was like, oh no. But like that's the thing. I don't know if I'd quite as be like negative as some of us as well. Like that it's like really, really bad. I at least like in this one, and maybe it wasn't intentional considering Rowan's talking about how they were trying to go for a horror tone. I find this one's almost like sillier and like campy in a way that I thought that they were in on the joke, which in the first Predator, like I find they're just constantly trying to be so cool.
It's so
the entire
serious,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, where this one I was just like, oh, okay, he's talking, he's making stupid jokes, you know, they're always like quipping back and forth at each other. This is all ridiculous that I was kind of like, I thought they were like in on the joke. If they're not in on the joke and they thought they were making a masterpiece, I don't know.
A gay had written this, I would 100% say this is a camp masterpiece, but because that is not the case, they're not in on the joke. That's all I'm saying about that.
Are they in on the joke, Rowan? You know?
See my Letterboxd review. Gary Busey wearing.
I saw your Letterboxd review.
Yes, thank you for screen capping it, by the way.
Well, the whole premise of the Predator is based on a joke that in like Hollywood they said that after Rocky IV he'd have to fight an alien. Because like he basically fought like a Russian cyborg,
yeah,
and they're like, all right, well let's do that. Like Rocky fights an alien, and that eventually turned into Arnold versus Predator. So there's definitely like humor I think baked into it, but I don't know if it really hits the mark here.
I think it's underbaked, if you catch my drift.
Half-baked.
Womp.
I think this was the first time, this is the first time I watched it kind of critically, that I realized like that kind of that whole chunk towards the end, like when we get into the vehicle with Gary Busey, I didn't realize I guess I was really young, it didn't click, that I'm like, how much this is literally like, this guy was like, man, I really like this scene in Aliens. And he's like, what if we just do the exact same thing? So we get like, everyone has video cameras on their shoulders or in their hats. It's the exact same thing. Predator, like, a predator or an alien taking them out. The cameras go fuzzy. People are like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
Game over, man.
Well, and even the guns, like, all of the nitroglycerin cannons are, like, extra big and long. So it gave me that, like, Vasquez feel. And yeah, I was just like, there was literally nothing original, like, inserted in that, like, what could have been like an awesome action scene. It was just ripped entirely out of it with just less of a cast. So I was gonna say, so we get the Predator with a little different look. They gave him they purposely gave him some decor, they said, inspired by Jamaican and Rastafarian looks. I didn't overly notice it.
They didn't have any commentary on Jamaican things in this movie.
Well, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting...
To quote Roger from American Dad, Jamaican me crazy.
One of the things I thought was kind of interesting, and there's lots of people that talk about it, and I noticed when I was watching it, is the Jamaican drug king. He's got like the chicken bones, and he's throwing them down, and like kind of interesting, like, white guys obviously wrote this tidbit, is like, voodoo doesn't exist in Jamaican culture. It's actually Haitian culture that has voodoo, but they were just like, oh, they're the same thing.
Shocker. They thought all cultures were the same. This is the shocking development in this movie.
I was gonna say, like, I didn't notice. They claimed that the Predator, like, there was decorations on his outfit that were supposed to be inspired.
I never noticed that. Yeah, I don't know.
It was super dark.
Yeah, I think originally because Joel Silver produced the first one, and I think it was something like one of the writers, or maybe it was Stan Winston, went to meet Joel Silver in his office, and he had a portrait of like a Rastafarian and the guy was like, oh, cool, I like that look. And yeah. And that kind of, I guess they tried to push it a bit more for Predator 2.
They were like, just in case you didn't get the connection, we're gonna outline it. By the way, here's this limo full of people, and as soon as it opens up, it's gonna be like the smoke pours out. And
I was gonna say, so this one we get a little bit of a promise of more Predators for like 10 seconds at the end. Maybe not as distinct as they probably should have been. They all kind of look the same. I know they talked about the Elder one is actually the exact same mold as the original. Sam used the original mold, he said, when making that Elder one. They just gave him a little more decoration. I mean, it's obviously not the same one because the other guy killed himself. I hate to comment on these things because it's 1990. I feel like this is where the CGI gets real bad in 1990. Like, the mist in the spaceship I thought looked great, but then it's a terrible job blending it in with the Predators.
Well, yeah, I don't think the mist was CGI. I feel like that was a practical or something, right? Like
it was dry ice, they said.
Yeah, dry ice, exactly. Yeah, but the Predator effects are definitely not very good. I was just shocked when I was Googling about this movie, like, before the show, because I had to Google what the flintlock pistol meant. I was just like, what the hell? I was like, was this a lead-in for Predator 3 or something, or what happened? And, I realized it was a comic book connection or something. But when I was Googling, I was like, all these Predators have distinct names? People care enough about this that they all have different names? And I was just, like, losing my mind over it. Like, oh, man.
I mean, I feel like the influence, obviously, of Aliens, I mean, of course they want them to have names. Because, I mean, I remember...
Of course they do.
Well, I was going to say, like, I remember, being super young and we were obsessed with Aliens. And, like, my friend had all the, like, Aliens toys.
Toys, yeah.
That's what they did with Aliens, right? Is they just started making up aliens to make toys. Like, you had, like, Gorilla Alien and, like, Dog Alien, and they just made...
Dog Aliens from 3.
Yeah. But a dog alien toy came out before 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was like a whole bunch of them, and they just basically mixed animals with aliens, and the alien would have like that characteristic.
Well, I think that's kind of a mistake that the Alien franchise has made, where it's like, well, the whole point of the xenomorph is that it can morph to xenotypes, but we just keep getting the same fucking xenomorph. And it's like, come on, the whole thing is that it can adapt to different species. Let's see, like, different species. But no, they're just like, no, man, chest burster.
But like I said, I feel like that maybe is some of the reasoning.
I mean, they're never going to top that design, right? So it's like...
No.
If your Predators have different names, then those toys can all be different. You got to buy them separately.
That's right.
Rastafarian Predator.
Cross-promotion.
Yeah, the names were like actual names, though. It was like, this one's Greyback. This one is Curtis. I don't know. It wasn't Curtis, but you know what I mean? Like, they all had names. Like, not like just like Tall Predator or like Blue Predator. Like, they had defined names when I was Googling it. I was just like, oh my God. Like, I'm not even researching this. It's too deep. It's way too much of a rabbit hole.
Curtis is my favorite Predator. I just want to hang out and have a beer with Curtis. I mean, yeah, I think there's not a whole lot to get into with this.
I think the premise was the right, in some ways, a good choice to move it to LA out of like the jungle. And I do enjoy the opening action sequence, and I think there is a potentially good movie here had it not been so stupid.
Honestly, one of my notes when I was watching it was like, all I can think about is watching this movie, and then I'm like, I get what they were kind of going for, but then like all I could think about was Strange Days and how much like a million times better that was at this like kind of same, like when you think about it weirdly, I know it sounds like fucking bizarre, but like Predator 2 and Strange Days like occupy this very similar like orb. You know what I mean? Like the Venn diagram overlaps a lot.
So we need a
Strange
Predator
Days
2.
Is clearly a million times better because it's a fucking Catherine Bigelow movie.
It's also like the drop off from John McTiernan to Steve Hopkins is
Yeah.
Like you know, so much of what makes like Die Hard and Predator so strong is the first 20 minutes they'll spend like kind of just like stretching your legs, getting to know these characters.
Yeah.
And then it's like click.
Before dropping them into the,
And then, you know, all the little things that McTiernan brings to his better movies, maybe not like Rollerball, but you know, that's definitely like sorely missing. And then also just like the cast is just not as strong.
Yeah.
Although I love Donald Glover, but man, not right for this role.
Well, originally supposed to be Patrick Swayze.
That could have been good.
that was the original casting choice.
But now I'm thinking about, listen, that Venn diagram I just drew, Patrick Swayze in another Catherine Bigelow movie, Point Break, which was probably about the same time as this was filmed. I'm just saying.
Well, and it was very close. Yeah. Patrick Swayze, the only reason he didn't take it was because he was injured.
Oh, this was the injury era. Okay.
Yeah, so he had injured himself and said that he couldn't do it. But I think Mike's right. I think there needs to be some sort of Strange Days, Predator 2, RoboCop, just joint universe.
Yeah, let's make it a 3-circle diagram, yeah.
Yeah, and just bring it all in.
I'm all in for that. I'm in on that. Give it to me.
You need to write this, Brad. Brad Dunne, screenwriter.
Well, let's ask that final question. Is it unsettling? Mike, we'll start with you.
That's my answer. No, are you kidding me?
I agree with Mike. It's not unsettling. We can argue about if they tried to make it more of a horror movie. Dark and gory does not make it unsettling. So no, not for me. What about you, Brad?
No. Yeah, it's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, it's gonna be a no for me.
Although anything with Gary Busey is like, there is a minimal threshold of unsettling.
But it's camp unsettling. Yeah.
Like I said, a no for me. I think the attempts were there more than the first one, as I said before. I think there's some scenes that are more unsettling than I think anything else the franchise has kind of offered us. But yeah, so we will get into our rating for it. I've already told you about the rating, so I'm not going through that again. And we will start with you, Colton.
Yeah, initially when I came into this episode, I thought I'd give this an okay, because like I said, I didn't really like Predator 1 very much, and I don't like Predator 2 very much. But I do think Danny Glover running around seeming like he's geriatric in 1990 takes it down a peg a little bit. It's not very scary. The writing / all the jokes in the movie are bad. Like, the only reason I even like the third act of this movie is just because it's so like silly and stupid. And if they were actually trying to be cool and didn't think it was silly and stupid, that definitely knocks it down a little bit for me. So I'm gonna give this one a nay. It's not like, I don't know. For me, it's not like yin and yang or anything. They're not like polar opposites or anything. It's just, yeah, a nay. What about you, Mike?
Oh, this is a solid, firm, rock hard nay for me. She hard. She will stay hard. This is going to be a hard for the rest of its life. Very erect nay. Sorry, Ro.
It's okay, man.
It was honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I gotta be brutally honest. It was more work than it was worth to even continue paying attention to this movie so I could have something to write about and talk about.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah, it's another rock hard rigor mortis name.
Rigor mortis,
oh
yeah.
My God, you guys just killing me here.
Are we though? Oh, I can't wait. Come on, Ro. Be the cherry on this cake. Be the cherry on this cake.
So, well, I'm only gonna give it an okay. I mean, to me, this isn't something that, like, you need to see, even if you're watching the other ones in the franchise. I mean, Predator kind of lends itself that you don't need to know anything really other than what the Predator is. This is one you can take it or leave it. I mean, like I said, obviously I have a nostalgia for it. It's one I watched all the time when I was little, so that's where my real enjoyment of it comes. And like I said, even though I think it tried to do more horror, it still wasn't effective. So to me, like, you could kind of watch the first one, and I feel like you can kind of jump right into, like, the first AVP, and you're probably pretty good. It's been a long time since I've rewatched Predators, which I feel like when I first saw it, I really liked that one. I thought it was better than...
Is that the one with Adrian Brody?
Yeah.
I remember thoroughly enjoying that one, actually.
Yeah, I feel like that one's kind of...
I felt like I actually watched it around the same time as I watched that Mary Elizabeth Winstead thing remake / sequel / reboot.
Yeah,
and I
remember
thinking,
at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like I saw them both as like kind of modern extensions of that I really enjoyed. I could be wrong because I haven't watched either of them in years, but
yeah, I saw Predators in theater, and I thought it was like okay.
Yeah.
It's funny that Prometheus kind of rips off the ending of it.
Oh my god, Prometheus.
Which is just hilarious.
Oh, dude, yeah, I like Prometheus.
I will say, I think that Predator 2 is better than the two AVP movies. I absolutely actively despise the AVP movies. I just think there's nothing redeeming about them at all.
We'll bring you back for them, for sure.
Okay.
I'll sit out on that episode. I think I'm good.
Last time I watched AVP, I think I have a soft spot for AVP. The first one, there's no soft spot for
Oh man, Requiem is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
I agree. Requiem, garbage. Hot garbage.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
I just remember the hype around Requiem was like, oh man, you know that shitty pussy ass AVP, this is way better. It was just like I said, just this dark ass movie where you couldn't see anything, and it was just terrible. And also a xenomorph rapes a pregnant woman in it.
Oof.
So it's gonna be a little different this episode because we're not announcing another movie because we have no idea what the movie is yet.
Yeah, and I mean, by the time this episode goes up, if we do hit next Sunday, I mean, you might have a few hours to get in and vote on our 3-year anniversary poll. It's between two great movies, and obviously it's very close. I have no clue what movies they are. But Yeah, I mean, if you'd like to do that, you can follow us on our socials at It Slays Podcast. And if you like what we do around here and would like to toss us a couple of bucks, you can head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast. And that's enough plugging for us. What about you, Brad? What do you have going on?
My third novel, called The Merchant's Mansion, will be out the end of February. I have 2 other novels you can check out, After Dark Vapors and The Gut. I'm also involved with Terra Nova. The second Terra Nova is coming out soon, which I have a short story in and I also edited. So yeah, you can check those out on
multi-talented
Amazon or wherever it is people buy books these days. Yeah.
And you'll be able to hear them on the AVP Requiem episode when
coming soon.
When it
coming soon
comes
to a
out.
Podcast software near you.
And the only thing, I did have another quick thing to plug, that it will be out by the time this is out. You'll be able to go into our Instagram, into our link tree. It'll be on Facebook. I'm sure we'll make a post about it, but I will have the voicemail up. I've got the voicemail figured out, and you'll be able to start leaving us voicemails to, talk about the films or just, give us like a hot sexual voicemail about Mike and
give us your best Gary Busey impression.
I need you to give me an impression of Gary Busey in a behind the scenes trailer talking about climate change and
God.
using as many scientific words that aren't words. That should be the first prompt. But yeah, that will be out by Sunday. I'll make sure that's up and running for everybody.
Excellent. Then we'll probably try and gather up some voicemails for the 3-year anniversary, see what people have to say.
But I think that is everything for this evening. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining us, and we will make sure we have you again sooner than later. Like I said, watch, we're going to hit on aliens, and we're going to have you back. So, as always, thank you so much, and this is Rowan.
It's Mike, bye.
And I'm Colton.
And I'm Brad.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
From the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth and Fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.